It is 10:03, so I would love to call this meeting to order. That's okay with you, Leah, excuse me.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
All right, wonderful. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here on this cloudy, overcast day, but it is a beautiful day. If you can please put your name and your affiliation in the chat for attendance purposes, we would appreciate it. My name is Maddie Bizzardo. I am the Director of Business Operations for the City of Bowie, and I am one of the co-chairs of this year's BIAC. And I'm delighted to be here. And so we shall start the meeting. So the next thing on our agenda is the approval of the September 18 meeting summary. It was sent out previous to the meeting for you to review, but if any of you have not reviewed it, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to look at it, and then we can go from there.
And Vice Chair, I'm not seeing anything in the chat
I
in
don't
terms of
see,
changes.
yeah.
Okay.
Is there any changes? Anybody wishes to make any changes to the meeting summary? Let me see, I can look at the chat.
Yeah.
I don't see anything.
Yep.
Okay, if I'm hearing none, then the September 18 meeting summary is finalized. All righty. Next on our agenda is the jurisdictional roundtable exchange. We asked the members to address the two framing questions, and they are: what energy, fuel assistance, or relief programs does your local government offer residents that are independent of the state LEHIP assistance? And what steps has your local government taken towards exploring or implementing battery energy storage systems, planning, or pilot projects? When I call upon your jurisdiction, please give your name and the jurisdiction that you belong to. And so let's start with Virginia. Virginia, anybody have can answer any one of those two questions?
And quick question, are you all seeing the agenda on the screen? Hello?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, great, thanks.
Does anybody want to volunteer? Arlington County, Prince William.
I can start. This is Allie Shepard from Arlington County.
Wonderful.
So just for some general updates, I believe Steve shared last time that our e-bike voucher program is ongoing. And so we have issued all of our vouchers, and over 100 people have purchased e-bikes so far. And we're on track to have all of those vouchers utilized by early 2026. Another update is our Green Building Incentive Policy will be presented to the county board in December for approval. And then to those two questions, we don't have any additional fuel assistance programs other than supporting people get into those programs that are mentioned, and some of Dominion's programs as well. And then for battery storage, we have an energy assurance plan. So we've been exploring resilience hubs that would incorporate batteries, and specifically working on some feasibility studies or considerations for battery storage opportunities at community centers or other similar areas to meet resilience needs for the facilities and the surrounding communities. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it. In the chat, we have Allison Homer from Fairfax. She has They have rehab for cooling assistance, they have fuel assistance and crisis assistance, and the funding is currently paused. And let's see, and they also have a new program called AC Rescue. Thank you, Allison, for that information. Anybody else from, from Virginia? All right, how about from the District of Columbia?
I guess I can come off mute. My name is William Whitfield. I'm the Associate Director for the Utility Portability Division. And as far as relief programs outside of LIHEAP, we do
Hello.
have
Hi, William. This is Leah. I wanted to just jump in here. Will what you're presenting now be the same as what you're presenting in the next agenda item? If so, I would ask if you could wait until we get to the next agenda item. If not, then by all means, jump in.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah,
Quasi the same, so I can hold off until the next agenda item.
thank you.
Yeah. All righty. Anybody else from the district? If not, how about Maryland? Montgomery County, Rockville.
This is Stanley from WMATA. We kind of bridge all of your locations, so I'll just chime in right now. As far as the battery energy storage program, on the Virginia side, maybe 6 to 8 years ago, we had a battery energy storage pilot project, which was funded by the FTA or partially funded by the FTA. So that sat on our rail system and basically recycled energy from the trains braking, essentially. That was at West Falls Church. So yeah, we had that. We put a report on the FTA website, so I can share that link.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Anybody else from Maryland or from any of the other jurisdictions?
This is Dory from Tacoma Park. Yeah, we're watching and paying attention to what other jurisdictions are doing, but we're not prepared to implement any battery storage at city buildings at this time because we are focusing our efforts on doing a pretty comprehensive municipal energy audit next year in order to have a good baseline and understanding more about our buildings before we implement systems.
Thank you. If I don't hear anybody else from Maryland, the city of Bowie actually, as far as our fuel assistance programs, we really are done with our programs. We do have a few more monies left to assist some of our residents. Particularly, we've been focused on, federal government workers. But that money is running out quickly. As far as our battery backup system, actually, we did have an audit done at both of our buildings that qualify under BEPS, and we're now going to be working with BG&E as a possibility of bringing in some battery backup systems, particularly to help out with our City Hall. And so that we're still in conversations on that one. So we haven't quite gotten very far into the whole project yet. So we're just still kind of waiting to see what BG&E, because they do have to come before the Public Service Commission to get a few approvals for the programs that they're looking at. All right. Anybody else who'd like to participate?
Yeah, this is Amanda Campbell, City of Rockville. I think for energy assistance, we have the same program, HEAP, and but we also have other emergency assistance funds for rent and things like that. And I think they had some extra like leeway through the county and through the state for electric bills for federal employees and contractors for a bit. There's also funding through Maryland for energy efficiency work that's free for low income residents. And in terms of batteries for the city government, we haven't looked into it too much yet, but we did adopt our building codes last year, which included energy storage ready space in the panel and in the home for new residences and for new commercial buildings. So that so that at least they're ready to be installed in the future.
Thank you, Amanda. Anybody else?
Hi, Jeremy Good from Montgomery County. We have an Office of Home Energy Programs within HHS. I just put a link in the chat, and that sort of works as a complement to the state level program. And then with battery storage, the only thing I'm aware of is that we have an LMI pilot program that includes electrification and pre-weatherization and climate resilience called HECAP. And so last year we had a couple battery storage systems installed for households that had like critical electricity, needs like medical equipment. But that's not, I don't know that we've learned anything tremendous from that. But we're definitely paying attention to the space.
Jeremy, appreciate your. Anybody else would like to from any of the other jurisdictions?
And Vice Chair, I think Allison Homer from Fairfax County. And Allison, you are, because you're Fairfax is a COG member jurisdiction, you are a member of the of BEAC, even though we do have a couple other members like Mike Myers and Maya that attends on behalf of Fairfax, but you've added to the chat that as far as battery energy storage, Fairfax County's zoning department is currently researching best for a zoning ordinance amendment. And Matt Myers is in attendance as well with Fairfax.
All righty, if there is no one else, thank you for participating. And now we're on to our next agenda item, which is a panel discussion on state energy assistance programs, including LEHIP, and maybe I'm saying it wrong, but it's the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Programs. They'll also be talking about other assistance programs. So we are going to have 3 rounds of discussions, and then from there, and the third round, you can ask any of the questions. All righty. So our first panelist is Cassandra Lovejoy. She is the Director of Policy and Managing for the National Energy Assistance Directors Association. Followed by William Whitfield, the Associate Director of Utility Affordability's Division of the DC Department of Energy and the Environment. Then we have Denise Serber, and forgive me if I messed up your name. She is the Energy Assistance Program Manager for the Virginia Department of Social Services, followed by Missy Neff, Director Environmental for Dominion Energy. Then we have Nicole Fernandez, Director Corporate Community Engagement, Pepco Holdings. And then finally, Mr. Rigel Moore, Director of Office of Home Energy Programs, Maryland Department of Human Services.
So, Madam Vice Chair, we did have a couple changes. Rigel Moore, he's not able to attend, so he did send a presentation, and that is posted on the website. And with Dominion, we have, I'm sorry, I just blanking on Elizabeth. Elizabeth is here representing Dominion instead of Missy Neff. Am I correct? Please jump in to correct me, Elizabeth, but we just got that change yesterday or this morning. So those are the panelists. But Maryland's Department of Home Energy Programs, the state, their presentation is posted on the website.
Righty.
So,
okay. So we'll go to first round. And this question is for Cassandra. Can you briefly describe NEADA and its efforts on the national level, including LEHAP funding, appropriations, and status?
Absolutely. Everyone. I'm Cassandra Lovejoy. I'm Policy and Managing Director at the National Energy Assistance Directors Association, which is the state association, the National Association of State LIHEAP Directors. We represent all 50 state LIHEAP offices. And also, just a side note, I was raised in Fairfax County. I'm in DC now, so near and dear to my heart right now. I am so excited because for the first time in 10 months, I have good news to share. And so I'm just over the moon to be able to say we got confirmation earlier this week from HHS, the federal office, that they will be releasing LIHEAP funds by the end of the month, and they're going to be releasing 3.6 billion or 3.7 billion total. Which we weren't sure was going to happen. And so we're very excited to know that we will be getting LIHEAP funding, and we will be getting it very soon. So top line takeaway, the money's coming. A little bit of background on this situation. In a typical year, we usually get 90% of our previous year's allocation at the beginning of the year because LIHEAP, a lot of state offices spend a lot of their money at the beginning of the year. About half, in a typical year, about half of the LIHEAP allocation is spent in the first quarter, and about 80% is spent during the winter months. So we really need our money at the beginning of the year every year. In a typical year, it takes about a month for LIHEAP funds to get out the door. So normally we would have seen them at the beginning of November. But of course, because of the shutdown, we weren't able to get those funds on time. But we're really excited to know that there will not be any, that HHS has indicated there won't be any delays. There was some uncertainty on whether or not they'd release the full 3.7 billion or if they'd release a smaller amount. So we're very excited with very good news. This has been a long road for the federal program. I don't know if you were following, but in April, they fired all of the program staff at the federal level. There is still a small team of fiscal folks over there. There are still people working at the federal office on LIHEAP, but it's a much smaller staff than usual. So we're really worried about what's going to happen in terms of monitoring. Are they going to be able to do monitoring next year? Are they going to be able to do a lot of their normal operations? But our number one worry is, will they get the funds out the door? And they've committed to that. So we're very excited, very, very much looking forward to getting all these programs up and running. If you look at kind of the national landscape, and I know that we have a couple of folks, DC and Virginia, on the call who are going to be talking specifically about what's the status is in their states, but around the country, it was really a patchwork of whether or not states opened up their LIHEAP programs at the beginning of the year. It depended a lot on whether they had carryover funds from previous years or whether they had a shut-off moratorium so that households weren't going to be shut off from power and therefore could, if they didn't have the money to pay their bill, it was not going to be a life or death situation, and other factors. So it's really been a patchwork. And as of right now, there are still, I would say most states are accepting applications, but most states are not providing benefits until they get those federal dollars through. Just kind of one more thing on kind of the broader national landscape. One of the things that we're really worried about is, even though we got we anticipate getting full funding for LIHEAP for FY 2026, the purchasing power of the program is still going down because energy prices are going up. So we predict that energy prices across the board will be up about 7.6% this winter. Electric prices will be up, this is around the country, about 10.2%. So, and natural gas prices up about 8.4%. So even though we are at this point getting at least level funding, the amount that, that we can't stretch the dollars as far, and we're still going to be underserving households around the country. So we're still worried about it. We're still going to be, in the media and talking everywhere we can about the need for additional LIHEAP funding. But in the short term, the news is relatively good. So I'll pause there. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have started at the basic. Yes, LIHEAP is a federal program to help low-income households pay their energy bills, and it includes mostly bill assistance, but there's also a weatherization component, an optional weatherization component.
Thank you very much, Cassandra, and it's wonderful to hear that we got funding. Yes, that's not always the case nowadays. All righty. The next question is directed to the next questions are actually directed to our two LIHEAP agencies. William, if you would love to talk about what you're doing. So can you describe your state's energy assistance programs and processes, and what is the status of the LIHEAP funds in your state?
Sure. Again, my name is William Whitfield. I'm the Associate Director for the Utility Affordability Division within the Department of Energy and Environment. Cassandra, we get your emails. We are so appreciative of it. And my staff loves you, Sharon Cook and Denise Watson. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And so for our programs that we do have the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, also known as LIHEAP. As well as our utility discount program, which works with our utility partners. That would be Pepco, Washington Gas, as well as DC Water. And with those utility discounts, we have the residential aid discount, which is through Pepco. We have our residential essential service discount, which is through Washington Gas. And we also have our customer assistance programs, or CAP. And those are tiered programs. CAP Plus is more so for lower income households. CAP 1 is for households that actually kind of fit into the LIHEAP low income guidelines. And then CAP 2 and 3 are the income that goes up from there. So CAP 3 is where we have residents who have higher incomes. So we have those programs, and we have several different modalities through those programs. One is through fax. So we do get applications through our faxes. We also get applications through mail. And we have an online application process for LIHEAP and UDP. UDP, again, is the Utility Discount Program, and that is through our Energy Community Online System, or ECOS. We also do have our Clean Rivers Impervious Area Charge, or CREAC program, which works with nonprofits as well as works with the CAP programs. So we do have another database that we use, which is QuickBase. And so that's kind of the full breadth of our energy programs. We also have weatherization. It's not really under my purview, but we do, through our state plan, look to fund weatherization, I think at 10%, if I can recall. Outside of that, for the question on the status of LIHEAP funds in our state, right now, as Cassandra told everyone, we are hoping to have funding, hopefully, I would say by end of the month, but I think realistically, probably next month. So we currently have no funds for LIHEAP. We are just kind of waiting for the funding to be released, hopefully at 90%, and we can start. We will start to process applications. We're doing that now, but we officially open our LIHEAP program December 1st. And then I think how much LIHEAP funding is currently available? None. And how do you expect the current funds to last? So once we get funding, and again, kind of echoing Cassandra's concern, is with energy burden increasing, we are expecting that we're going to get high demand, and we will not be able to meet demand because with Pepco, I believe, has increased in Washington, D.C. by the tune of almost 33%. And we're all feeling it, whether we're low income or not. And so we're truly expecting that in serving our district residents, that we will run out of funding. Likely, we typically do. After the last 2 years, we've run out of funding toward quarter 2 or quarter 3. And so we're expecting to run out of funding again around Q3, maybe beginning of Q4, just because we're starting almost 2 months later. So we're really hoping to stretch the dollar. We've changed our benefit matrix. We've gone from a benefit for regular amounts from $250 to $200. We kept our regular benefit range from 200 to 1800, changed the lower amount from 250 to 200. And then we also have our crisis, which is typically what a lot of people come to us for. We were at 750 and we reduced it to 500 so that we can spread the dollar out a little bit more. So not the best situation that we're in, especially given that we are starting late due to the shutdown, but we are hoping and looking forward to having the 90% distributed, and we will start to put benefits toward district residents' accounts.
All right. Well, thank you very much, William. We appreciate you sharing. Denise, can you please tell us about what is happening in Virginia?
Sure. In Virginia, we actually have 4 components of our energy assistance program. That program serves low-income households with income of 150% of the federal poverty level or less. For the components in the Department of Social Services, we have fuel, crisis, and cooling components that are administered through 120 local departments of social services across the state. And our applications can be submitted via paper, online application in our system called Common Help, and through the telephone at an enterprise customer service center. Customers can also apply for almost all of our other programs that are offered through the Department of Social Services, such as your SNAP, TANF assistance, medical assistance, child care, those things through those same means as well. So it's helpful for the customers to be able to make one call or complete one online application and apply for everything at once. Those local departments of social services, as I said, they go across the state. There's one in every city or county, and they process the applications for the fuel, crisis, and cooling. Then our home office, which is where I work, is responsible for maintaining contracts with our energy assistance program vendors and for issuing the payments to the vendors, as well as if we have a customer that receives a direct pay. Just some of the things that we do cover for fuel assistance, that's primarily focused on your home heating cost, but we can use that to do things like delivery charges, late fees, connections or reconnections, things of that nature. That is usually our largest component where we will allocate the most funding, and that is generally, like I said, that is about 50% of our funding each year that we spend. Our crisis assistance, we can help with security deposits, we can help with purchase or repair of heating equipment and cooling equipment. We also can look at helping to pay on utility bills or purchasing a delivery of home heating fuel. And then our cooling assistance program, we can provide for cooling equipment, purchase or repair, and we also pay on electric bills to operate cooling equipment. The vast majority of our cooling assistance dollars will go towards that payment towards the electric bill. And I will say, in previous years, we've had about a $400 to $600 payment for that. This past year, just due to funding and budgeting, we were only able to do a $365 payment, but we were still able to pay over 84,000 households with that. And like I said, that is the vast majority of our cooling expenditures is for that help with electric bill. With the cooling assistance, that is the only component that we offer that we do require that you have a vulnerable household member, which is someone who is either disabled, age 60 or over, or they have a child in the home who is under the age of 6. The other component that is offered through our LIHEAP funding is weatherization assistance. We do, in our state statute, have to give our sister agency, which is the Department of Housing and Community Development, 15% of our LIHEAP award each year to provide weatherization services for customers. So that is, like I said, they are actually administering that program through a series of nonprofit agencies across the state as well, but they will report the information to us regarding how that has, how things have gone with that program, how many households they've served. They also will do comparisons with us as to which households we're serving to try to make sure that we're all getting to the households that are in the most need. And a lot of times we will work in conjunction with weatherization and our crisis assistance to be able to make sure that we have enough funds to help with particularly heating equipment purchases, or if it's someone who has a very extravagant repair that needs to be done or has something that's going to be high dollar. We do also have in our state, we have our percentage of income payment program that is with our two largest electricity providers. That program helps folks to be able to pay down on their arrearages that they have. It also helps them to reduce what they are responsible for paying on their monthly electric bill. And that we've just been doing that program now for about 2 years, but that has been very helpful, especially during the times when we've been looking at having less funding or the possibility of not having funding, to know that there is something that is pretty much statewide between these two providers that is an alternative for folks to use, or also can be a supplement because they can still receive energy assistance and receive help through the PIP program as well. We also have several of our utility providers across the state that offer their own assistance programs that are not part of what we do, but that gives a supplement for the customers. It also sometimes is something that if we can't serve a customer, they're able to. Talking about the funding within the state, as Cass and William mentioned, of course, we just found out that we will be getting the federal fiscal year 26 funding, which is good to know because we've all been extremely stressed with that, and especially in our state where we don't have any state funds in this program. We are dependent on the federal funds. So we have been in the same situation as a lot of states in that we have been taking applications for our program, but we have not been able to approve anyone, and we had to explain that that would be paused until we did receive federal funds. So we're excited that hopefully in December we can start approving all of those households that we've kind of had on hold here for a while. For our funding, as far as how long we expect things or expect that funding to last, generally we try to budget enough so that we don't have any issues with offering all of our three components across the year. If we have to reduce, as I mentioned earlier with the cooling assistance, if we have to reduce that benefit, we do reduce it, but so far we have been lucky in that we've been able, as I said, to budget so that we do offer that assistance and can offer some form of payment. We expect to continue to do that in the future, but it really will be dependent on, if we receive the federal funding and exactly how much the amount is for that. So I believe I have gone through all of the questions.
Well, thank you very much, Denise. We appreciate it. All righty. The next set of questions is for our utility companies. Elizabeth Ryan from Dominion, okay, and we also have Nicole Fernandez from Pepco. Can you guys briefly describe your? I'm sorry.
Vice Chair, yes, Vice Chair, it's me, Leah. We do have Lizelle Rory from SMECO on the line. I don't want to put you on the spot but just in case, Lizelle, you are welcome to answer any of the questions. But if not, we do have the planned responses from Dominion and Pepco.
Great. Well, the questions are: describe your utility assistance or relief programs offered to your customers, and what utility assistance or relief programs does your utility company offer its customers that are separate from the state LEHAP assistance? So if Elizabeth, you want to go first, please?
Sure, not a problem. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us. So for the first question about describing our utility assistance or relief programs that are offered to our customers, of course, we work very closely with the Virginia Department of Social Services in administering the LIHEAP programs for our customers. Our focus right now, of course, is the fuel assistance component, and then we're going to roll right into crisis assistance at the beginning of the year. The LIHEAP programs are supplemented by our own nonprofit, Dominion Energy's nonprofit, called Energy Share. We are a last resort crisis-based program, so anyone in our service territory is eligible to apply for assistance with any heating source, primary heating source. So we don't just pay the electric bills, we will assist with other heating sources as well. And we are not income qualified for our Energy Share program. So like I said, since being more crisis-based, someone could be making a very good salary, but if they are experiencing a crisis and are in danger of losing their services or need to reconnect service, they can apply for Energy Share assistance. In addition to that general program, we do have a cooling component to that. So we run all year. October through the end of May is our heating, and then June through September is our cooling. And in our cooling program, we assist, of course, with the primary cooling source, not any other programs. Just like with LIHEAP cooling, it's primarily for the electric utilities at that point. We do also have a component for veterans and persons living with disabilities that is separate from our general Energy Share heating and cooling components. In addition, Denise spoke about the percentage of payment program, or PIP. We also have been working very closely with the Virginia Department of Social Services in the management and the rollout of that program. It is a billing program, as Denise stated, so this is not bill payment assistance where they apply and they get a certain amount paid towards their utility bill. And this customers will be billed based on a percentage of the income depending on what they heat with, whether it's the electric or if they heat with any other type of primary heating source. With on-time and in full payments each month, they are eligible to earn incentive credits towards either arrears that they carry when they enter the program or towards their current bill. This follows the same income requirements that LIHEAP does at 150% of the federal poverty level or less. Dominion Energy also offers billing and payment plans that can assist our customers. We do have long-term payment plans where customers will pay their current bill in addition to a portion of their past due balance, and this goes up to 6 months. We have short-term extensions where we can give customers a little bit more time if they needed to make payment. This could be a situation where customers may get paid, 3 days after their due date, and they need just a few extra days before their bill is due. And then additionally, we have a budget billing component, which that is the average of the past 12 months of usage. It's what the customer would pay on their bill. For other assistance or relief programs that our company offers, in addition, we have a dedicated energy assistance team here at Dominion Energy. I work on that team. Lisa Fajon, our supervisor, is also on the call. We work with the agencies across the state of Virginia and North Carolina that are assisting these customers. So Dominion Energy does focus very heavily on assisting customers that may be struggling with their utility bills. In addition, not only in working with these programs, we do have a dedicated outreach component to our energy assistance team. We have 3 dedicated administrators who travel the state for free, talking to customers about energy assistance options that may be available, low cost, no cost ways to save. In addition, our team provides backup if that is needed for these outreach events. We also provide dedicated literature to our customers, as well as having a dedicated web page all about energy assistance options that are available to our customers, to include the printed literature if they need it, all of the program information, as well as information about PIP.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Nicole, tell us a little bit about PEPCO.
Good morning. I'm Nicole Fernandez. I am the Director of Corporate Community Impact at PEPCO. And so just to kind of hit on the program that we
Excuse me,
have.
Nicole. Can you
Yes.
get a little closer? We can barely hear you.
Okay, let me try to change my sound. I apologize. Is that any better?
It sounds like you're going through a tunnel.
How about this? Does it sound any better there?
Can everybody hear her?
It sounds, I mean, we can hear you, or I can hear you, but it does sound like you're somewhat speaking in the can. But
Help at all? I
I don't know if anybody can chime in to make sure that at least you can hear her. I'm sorry.
It's really hard to hear.
Do you have earphones, or maybe move a little closer to the mic, your mic?
to the source. Does that help at all?
Not really. If maybe talk louder. I'm not sure. I'll try that.
I'll try to speak louder if that helps at all.
That's better.
Okay.
That's better.
All right, good. So just to talk a little bit about our programs and not to be duplicative, but we do work with our local state energy assistance agencies for programming. So PEPCO customers have access to several programs, including LIHEAP programs, as we heard talked about already in the district in Maryland. Customers also have access to arrearage retirement assistance programs. So these programs help customers with large past due bills, the DC arrearage management program, and then Maryland, there is an arrearage retirement assistance program as well. In Maryland, customers have access to the Electric Universal Service Program. So this is a state program that helps customers receive assistance on their past due and current electric bills. And there also is a Utility Service Protection Program that protects customers from turnoffs during the heating season. In the district, we heard William mention our low-income discount rate program, which is our RAD programs, where customers can receive a monthly credit to offset distribution charges. In addition to those programs, we also provide flexible payment options to customers. We have an extended due date program that allows customers to extend their due date of their bill to align with assistance that they may be receiving on a monthly basis. We have flexible payment arrangements that are offered to customers that they can set payments over a 12-month period for past due balances, and then budget billing, which help customers have a set amount of their bill every month, and that really helps them to manage fluctuating energy bills kind of in the higher billing months in the summer and the winter. We also have energy tools to help customers so they can track their hourly usage, see projected monthly bills based on their current usage, and then receive customized reports and alerts if their usage is increasing. We also offer assistance tools to customers. So we have a single stop tool, which lets customers determine if they're eligible for any other benefits, including housing benefits and other benefits beyond just energy assistance and billing assistance. And we also have an assistance finder tool, which helps customers kind of best find assistance types that best suit their needs. All of these resources can be found on our website, and I can drop that into the chat in a few minutes, but it's pepco.com/bill support, which gives customers access to all of the assistance types in their region, as well as the tools that I mentioned to help understand their billing and give them access to other sources of assistance that they may be eligible for. As I heard mentioned by Dominion, we also have a community engagement team, which actually I do work with, that is out in our communities educating customers about programs that are available to them, educating customers about billing. So we're out in the community every day throughout the district, Montgomery County and Prince George's County, and providing customers with that in-person support that they may need.
All right, thank you, Nicole. Appreciate it. Lizelle, I guess, from SMECO, if you want to comment on anything, and forgive me if I said your name incorrectly.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Lizelle Rory with SMECO, and I apologize that I wasn't really prepared to give comments today, just based on the agenda, but happy to chime in. Obviously, being a Maryland utility, we have a lot of the same state level and federal level programs that were already mentioned. So in the interest of not being duplicative, I won't go over those again, but specifically to SMECO, as our cooperative has a members helping members program, which allows members to make voluntary donations to a fund where we work with the Tri-County Southern Maryland Tri-County Community Action Committee to assist members who may need additional assistance with their electric bill. This is a voluntary, either a recurring contribution or one-time contribution that members could make that goes into that fund that helps other members with the electric bill. And similar to what was mentioned by both Dominion and Pepco, we do have flexible billing arrangements. We have budget billing that allows for a set amount every month to sort of shield against the fluctuations that members may see with their bills in high demand periods in the winter and summer. And then we also have, specifically with this latest federal shutdown in Maryland, we weren't folks that were affected by being furloughed weren't subject to cutoff and could make billing arrangements and those sort of things. So a lot of it has already been said, so I don't want to repeat all those things, but I think the one that's really specific to SMECO is sort of our voluntary donation member helping members program.
All right, thank you very much for sharing and putting you on the spot.
Sure.
All righty, well, we're off to our next round of questions. And let's go back to, excuse me, I'm in the middle of a conference, so there's a lot going around me. William, can you please tell us a little bit about some of the contingency plans that you have in place or alternatives under consideration by DC should your energy assistance funds run out?
Got it. So unfortunately, there are no real contingency plans in Washington, D.C. We don't have any local funds that are set aside specifically for LIHEAP or our I would say UDP, but actually the utilities pay into UDP. So that's a reimbursable program for us. So that's kind of a contingency, but that only gives a discount. It does not really put a benefit toward lowering the burden. So it's not a monetary amount that we give our district residents. So we unfortunately don't, again, going back, we don't have a contingency plan per se, but what we do is work with our utility partners and other stakeholders to ensure that we can equip our district residents with the resources that they need. I believe, Nicole at Pepco ran through some of their programs. So we work with Pepco, Washington Gas, DC Water, and C&M Oil specifically. And where we, through our utility discount program, we also have our utility advisory committee meetings that we meet monthly just to update our partners on where we are. If we are running out of money, we'll update our partners and we kind of spring into action on, what are some things, what contingencies we can provide our district residents as far as working with our district partners. And some things in the past that have happened is that specifically with like our Pepco partners, they came up with the Customer Relief Fund. Washington Gas has its Washington Area Fuel Fund, and then DC Water has its SPLASH program, which stands for Serving People, Lending and Supporting Hands. So just ensuring that we update our website and let our district residents understand what the resources that we have outside of LAHEAP are has been the only kind of contingency plan that we have. We have in the past had local funding pre-pandemic, but after the pandemic and having the Area Rescue Plan Act funding, we then discontinued having local funding and only relied on federal funding. So.
Thank you, William. Denise, how about what in Virginia?
Well, I will say it actually made me feel better to hear William say that they don't have any confirmed contingency funds or contingency plans, because we are in the same boat in that we've had discussions with trying to look at how could we find other sources of funding for the program, as far as with state funds, any funding that we have within our own agency that we could access or utilize, things like that, because currently we don't have anything in our legislation or code of Virginia that speaks to any funding being provided by the state for this program. And I think honestly that's because there hasn't been a need. But for the past year, I think we've really seen the fact that, you know, some of the states that do have things in their legislation that if there's no federal funds, a certain amount is kicked in by the state, or when federal funds are furnished, but they're lacking, that there's still some assistance from the state. I think the rest of us are seeing that this is something we definitely need to pursue for the future. So for us, we are doing the same thing as far as trying to make sure that we know the other resources that we can steer customers toward if this program doesn't have enough funding, or if we ultimately wind up with no funding. We have 211 Virginia that is our referral service that usually, you know, maintains all of the resources and things, and we try to stay in close contact with them to make sure that everybody is informed about what's happening and making sure that we're aware of what's out there, and if there's anything we can do to gather information from any of our providers about possible assistance that could be there. But like I said, right now there's nothing in stone. Everything is in discussion and planning for this is what we really need to have in the future. So hopefully all of that does work out in the future, and we will have some contingency plans that are there in place. But the other thing is too, hopefully we also will see, you know, an increase even in the LIHEAP funds, because as Cass had pointed out in the chat, there's clearly a need for this program. The need is much greater than the funding we receive now. And, you know, to think of it not being there at all, it just doesn't make sense at all to anyone.
Thank you, Denise. Appreciate it. All right, the next question is for our folks from our utility companies. Elizabeth and Nicole, can you answer what contingency alternative policies related to customer disconnections does your utility company have in place, or are they considering should state energy assistance programs funding run out?
This is Elizabeth with Dominion Energy. I guess I'll start, just go in the same order. Nicole, did you want to go first? I apologize.
Okay. You go ahead.
So at Dominion Energy, our mission remains unchanged. We're here to provide safe, reliable, and affordable energy to all our customers. We do understand that some of our customers are struggling. So at our company, we've expanded our energy assistance programs. I talked about our energy share program, you know, including our payment plans, energy efficiency rebates, and the weatherization support that's available for low-income customers. We truly do encourage our customers to reach out to us early if they anticipate any difficulty in paying their bills, just because it helps to have more time to be able to help that customer. So currently we do follow all commission or legislative mandates when it comes to our disconnect process. We do need
Looks like she
With our
might have been disconnected.
Oh,
she's back.
oh, sorry. Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay. We do have a disconnect policy that is available on our website. We don't disconnect before holiday on Fridays or based on the temperatures, whether, it's a certain certain winter temperature or certain summer temperature. We are very generous with our payment plans. Customers are able to get multiple long-term or short-term extensions if they need that assistance. In addition, we do have a serious medical policy that was mandated by the State Corporation Commission. This does not provide any type of bill assistance, but for customers who have life-threatening conditions or use electrically powered medical equipment, they can go through this process of having this form filled out by the physician. It notifies Dominion Energy, and we're able to provide, additional plans or notifications to those customers if they need it. Truly, we do encourage customers to apply for the PIP program just because for customers who are enrolled in PIP, they're paying a percentage of their income towards their utility bill, regardless of what their usage is. So very similar to budget, they're paying that set amount each month, or that's what they're billed for. And they're not having to deal with the fluctuations based on weather. So those higher utility bills in the summer and in the winter, they would still be only paying their PIP amount. And for a customer who's in disconnect, they can generate a disconnect on the PIP program, or PIP, I should say. Program's already in that acronym, I apologize. They can generate a disconnect on PIP, but they're only responsible for paying that past due PIP amount to stop the disconnect or issue the reconnect, not their actual balance. So that really does help. And in addition, Denise stated that PIP customers are eligible for energy assistance. So we do encourage them to apply for the LIHEAP programs, or even, as we stated, our Energy Share program if they need it. Energy Share, as I stated, is last resort and crisis based. So that's really helping with any type of disconnect or reconnect. And again, our service territory is quite large in Virginia. So we have an agency in every county as well that will intake those applications to help those customers, along with that weatherization component. I failed to mention that earlier. I apologize. Through our Energy Share program, as well as all of the other energy weatherization programs that Dominion Energy offers.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. And similar to many of the things Elizabeth said, I think at PEPCO, same thing. We work with our agencies across the region to assist customers. We encourage them to apply for assistance and contact us early if they do need assistance. So earlier I mentioned flexible payment arrangements, budget billing programs, and extended due date programs. We encourage customers to take advantage of those to get ahead of any needs. Our direct assistance program, Single Stop, and our assistance finder tool, so customers can also access additional sources of assistance. We know affordability challenge isn't just limited to utility bills. Customers are facing affordability challenges with many of their items in their budget, and so we encourage them to use our Single Stop and assistance finder tool to access additional assistance. Earlier this year, PEPCO, through a donation from our company, our parent company, Exelon, launched the Customer Relief Fund. William mentioned that a little bit ago. Customers can receive up to $300 in additional assistance for their utility bill through this program. We've currently assisted over 7,000 customers with that program, so available to customers in Montgomery County, Prince George's County, and the district. And that is for low to moderate income customers. So customers and families making up to $128,000 in a gross annual income can apply for that program. William also mentioned the Washington Area Fuel Fund is another source of assistance for customers that can receive up to $500 in assistance. I will also say during the shutdown, PEPCO supported some of our community partners that were providing more broad support to the community to help address food insecurity, housing needs, and emergency support. So we worked through the United Way of the National Capital Area, who provides assistance, the Capital Area Food Bank, who's providing assistance, Mission of Love Charities, and United Communities Against Poverty. Again, those organizations providing additional assistance to customers, particularly during the shutdown. So again, we encourage customers to access the tools and resources. I put it in the chat a little bit earlier, but at pepco.com/bill support is where customers can access assistance to all of the assistance types available to them in their jurisdiction.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Does Lizelle want to mention anything from SMECO?
So we don't have any additional contingencies in place, should federal and state funding cease. I do know that we're continuing to get state funding at the moment. We sort of tapped into the 26 budget and we're continuing to get those support, those monies from state for our low-income customers. I would say that specifically to Maryland, we have an Empower Maryland Energy Efficiency and Demand Response Program. And part of that program is for all customers, but we work very closely with the Department of Housing and Community Development here in Maryland, where we direct low-income customers to DHCD who may want to participate in sort of weatherization and other energy efficiency measures. And a lot of those measures for our low-income members are 100% covered when they go through DHCD. So we do have that avenue as well in helping our members who may be low income and sort of, keeping their electric bills down, that, they can get pretty, 100% of those measures through DHCD. And we do have online tools that direct them, or at least ask, that have questions to sort of, determine if a member would qualify for those programs with DHCD. But as mentioned, a lot of the similar things that are sort of state mandated with regards to sort of things in place not to shut off members, that maybe have medical challenges or when the weather is a certain temperature. We certainly adhere to all of those mandates and policies to help members in these times. And then our sort of community outreach group has annual fundraisers where we support either housing or food insecurity type agencies within our community. We have an annual golf charity tournament that just wrapped up last month or in September that provided funds for such organizations in each one of the main counties that we serve. So those are sort of ongoing efforts, not necessarily just related to the affordability crisis that many of our members are facing right now, but things that we've had in place for quite some time.
Thank you very much for sharing. All right, we're off to round 3. We will take now questions from the full committee. If you can just please raise your hand virtually, or if you want to put it in the chat, but just make sure that you let us know who you are and what jurisdiction you represent. So if we want to start with the questions.
And Madam Vice Chair, we do have quite a few questions from Amanda Campbell from the City of Rockville. Some of our questions have been answered by Cassandra, so thank you very much. I won't go through reading the questions and the responses to that, but Amanda, your last question was, I'm not sure if you wanted to come off mic, but I think it was you had inquired about this twice. Our assistance programs through the utilities, well, it's a little bit of a different question. Our assistance programs through the utilities, Pepco, Dominion, Potomac, SMECO, available regardless of the immigration status.
Yeah,
So,
I guess we could just make that a question of like, which programs across the board, whether it's state or county or whatever, are available for undocumented immigrants. Thanks,
If our utilities want to touch that one.
So I can speak for the Customer Relief Fund that was administered through Salvation Army. That is a PEPCO program, and so that is available to the account holders. So if the customer is the account holder, they would be eligible for that program.
Echo?
This is Elizabeth from Dominion Energy. We have the same policy for our energy share program. It's the account holder.
Okay.
This is Lizelle Rory, and I will chime in and say that, yes, so we look at account holder as well. So there's nothing that the utility does with regards to immigration status of any of our members.
Respond to Amanda.
And Madam Chair, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat come up or any hands raised. So I'll jump in with I guess a question and first a comment and then a question. So the other day at our Air and Climate Public Advisory Committee, which is a citizen-led advisory committee that COG has that provides advisory to the work that we do across our Climate and Energy Advisory Policy Committee. Again, it's a lot of acronyms, but CEPC. And then this committee advises also on our air quality side. And so Monday I had a presenter from the Energy Justice Lab, which is a research collaboration between Indiana University and UPenn in Philadelphia. And I'll actually send that presentation out and maybe try to get a clip of the stream or the recording. And I was hoping that Dr. David Koniski would be able to attend today, but he is an instructor, so he probably was not available. But some of the information they provided, at the end of his presentation, he talked about some potential policy interventions. And he talked about there's 3 different areas where there could be policy interventions. The 3 areas would be household struggles to pay energy bills. The second policy intervention area would be household receives notice for disconnection. And then the third is household is disconnected. So across those 3 areas, there's different policy interventions. And then one of the interventions was discounted utility rates. So I know that's sort of a big bite to sort of digest in terms of thinking through and even a response from the utilities and the panelists that are here today. But do you all know if there's any conversation maybe at the at the higher levels of the utility commissions about discounted utility rates for low income residents, just not obviously in the region, but nationally it could be part of a growing conversation.
I can speak to just Pepco. As we mentioned, we do have a discounted rate in the District of Columbia. So that's the residential aid discount program that was mentioned. So that exists in the District of Columbia. We are actually in Maryland actively supporting ways to help better support customers managing rising costs. And one of those is through evaluating a discount rate for limited income customers in Maryland. So we're currently working with the Public Service Commission through the Maryland Limited Income Mechanism Working Group to evaluate just that, a limited income rate for customers in Maryland.
Awesome.
Yeah.
From Dominion Energy, and just wanted to let you know with us, the conversation was specifically around the HIP. That's been the big conversation over the past years as this program got up and running. For additional, I will have to apologize. That is beyond my pay level, so I cannot speak to that. But HIP is probably the biggest one that I am currently aware of.
And that dashboard that I posted there, that is research that the Energy Justice Lab does. And you're right, it shows information at the zip code level, but Virginia is a bit different. So again, I will try to send that presentation out and try to get a clip of that a speaker to BIAC members if they're interested.
Heidi, you have your hand up. You want to unmute?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. Yes, I also heard that same presentation by the Energy Justice Lab. And a couple of things that really stood out that he said, he was speaking nationally, but he said 1 in 4 households nationally are energy insecure, which is just a tremendously alarming number. But the other thing he said was that more often people accrue debt or forego comfortable temperatures or maybe forego medications or a meal versus reaching out to their utilities. He had a chart that showed the percentage of times that they forwent comfort or accrued debt over reaching their utilities. So I think there's that communication barrier that exists. And so I'd encourage everyone on here to try to really message widely as much as you can to get the message out that the utilities and states and local governments are there to help, and that there are those tools and assistance programs in place. I think it's still a messaging hurdle. And then the other thing I wanted to ask is, I know at least one of you mentioned, I think it was in Virginia, that applications for assistance could be done on the phone as opposed to online. And I was wondering if that's across the board with everyone on here today, that it's not necessarily only online applications for those that's a hindrance. Thanks.
Utilities would like to respond. Elizabeth, Nicole.
Yeah, I know that our regions offer online applications. I think one of the things as a utility that we do, as I mentioned, is kind of that community engagement and community support. So we are out in the communities where we know that there is need, kind of helping customers access those applications and actually helping them walk through where we can. So, that is one thing that we do as a utility, kind of in that community engagement space to help them access those applications.
Wonderful, thank you. All righty. There is a question in the chat. Amanda, if you would like to talk, unmute and talk about it.
Oh, yeah, I was just wondering, maybe Cassandra knows, or maybe I could contact Garrett in the Montgomery County if there's like a hearing at the Maryland PSC or something about the low income discount rate program. If there's a place, time that local jurisdictions could weigh into that.
Yeah, so there, I was looking to try to find a link that I could send you. I believe there was one on October 24th. So I was working with Olivia Wine at the National Consumer Law Center, and I know that they attended a hearing recently on it. I'll try to dig up, I don't know if anybody in Maryland has more details, but I'll try to dig up a link to that. But as I understand it, the comments were due on October 24th.
Yeah, I don't have them offhand, Cassandra. That's accurate in terms of the time frame, but I could circle back and get that information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions for our panelists? You see anything else, Leah, in the chat?
No, I don't.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, panelists, for coming and sharing with us all this wonderful information. And I hope that everybody got some really good, information that they can take back to their local jurisdictions. Alrighty. So now we're going to be going to our next agenda item, which is the battery energy storage systems. We have with us Todd Olinsky Paul. He is the Senior Project Director of Clean Energy States Alliance. Todd will provide a comparative review of state energy storage procurement mandates, targets, and goals. After he does his presentation, we'll take some questions. All right, Paul, thank you and welcome.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. And can you see my screen, or did you want to share yours?
Yes,
You want to share yours?
you can either advance the slides because I'm in a place that Wi-Fi.
Okay.
While we do this.
And
Okay.
you all are able to see what's up, right? Can you see my
Yes,
screen?
we are.
Yes.
Okay, great.
I'm just trying to figure out how to enlarge it a little bit so I can see it. Okay. Yeah, so thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to be here and answer your questions at the end, but if you want to jump in because you didn't understand something, as far as I'm concerned, it's fine. I'm Todd Olinsky Paul. I'm a Senior Project Director. You can go ahead to the next slide. With Energy Group. And if you're not familiar, they are both nonprofits, sharing a lot of staff and resources between the two. Based in Vermont, we work with state energy agencies, regulators, and other partners across the country, including national labs and US DOE. Next slide, please. Clean Energy States Alliance, or CESA, is essentially a membership organization for state energy agencies. And you'll notice there that DC, Department of Energy and Environment, is a member, and OPC DC is an affiliate member or associate member, I think they call it, along with many other states. Go ahead to the next slide. We also, since we're talking about energy storage, I wanted to make you aware that CESA administers something called the Energy Storage Technology Advancement Partnership, or STAP, that is conducted under contract with Sandia National Laboratories, funded with money from US DOE Office of Electricity. And that is to work with states, to partner with states and the lab and DOE to produce and develop and construct large-scale energy storage demonstration projects. We've done a whole bunch of these across the country. We also, through STAP, provide lots of information. We do lots of webinars. We write case studies and reports, and we have policy support for states and, of course, for District of Columbia as well. So, and it's all free. We work with DOEE regularly on their energy storage efforts and provide policy and technical support to them. Next slide, please. Clean Energy Group, which is the second organization I mentioned, and I do work about half and half between CESA and CEG. They're both nonprofits. Clean Energy Group is a bit more of a broad-based advocacy organization. It doesn't just work with states primarily. It works more at the local level with community-based organizations. It's more foundation funded. And through Clean Energy Group, I do a lot of additional energy storage policy work, including analysis. We write lots of reports and do webinars and speak at conferences and advance new models for energy storage. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go through this agenda, starting with an overview of state energy storage policymaking. And then we'll look at some best practices for state energy storage procurement targets, which is what I was asked to focus on. And then, time permitting, I may, if we have time, I'll go through some other state policy options around energy storage other than procurement. Go ahead to the next slide. So just as an overview, there are many tools in the toolbox. And so you'll see there's a red line between numbers 2 and 3 there. The reason for that is that the top two here, the first one being studies, planning, commissions, and reports on energy storage, and then grants for demonstration projects. Those are typically two of the earliest sort of initiatives that states undertake in this area. They are very important, and we often support these kinds of activities, but they are not the kinds of things that really build markets or long-term investment. And so if you want to build markets, you've got to go down the list to number 3. And these are longer-term policy and program initiatives. And these include things like utility procurement, mandates and targets, which we'll be talking about in a minute, customer incentives like rebates and tax credits, energy storage adders in renewable incentive programs like storage adders in solar incentive programs, storage incentives in efficiency programs, low-cost financing, market rule reform, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then at the bottom of the list, regulatory initiatives, and this is a whole area of itself. Next slide, please. And regulatory initiatives and reforms include things like enabling utility ownership of energy storage, which isn't a given in many areas. Utilities can't own generation. If that's the case, then there has to be a decision made somewhere at the state level as to whether storage is considered generation or not. So in some cases, for example, in Massachusetts, utilities cannot own generation, but they can own storage. In New York, they can own storage only in certain cases. So it really depends on how it's defined. Other regulatory issues that can be addressed, the inclusion of energy storage and utility IRPs, which are the utility integrated resource planning exercises that happen on a regular basis that determine the upcoming utility expenditures and what they're going to invest in. Distribution system planning, which is an emerging new thing in many states, where instead of leaving the distribution system to be sort of reactive and determined by the local utility, the state actually has some kind of process in place for proactive planning on the distribution scale. Changes to net metering tariffs, changes to legacy interconnection standards, which is a big one. Time of use rates, retail rate redesign, benefit cost analysis, and then pilot programs and demonstrations. The next slide, please. So as you can see there, as I said, there are many tools in the toolbox. I want to give you a little information from a report that we published with Sandia National Laboratories back in 2023. And this was looking at what states are doing across the country to promote and support energy storage, specifically for decarbonization goals. And one thing I will say is that whatever you do, whatever kind of policy tool you choose to use, however you go forward, it needs to be in support of whatever the larger policy goals are. And so what those goals are is going to determine what kind of policy or regulatory approach is going to work best, and it's going to determine how you're going to design those programs to meet those goals. So in this report, we surveyed states. We also surveyed industry and did some other things. And we looked at what are the emerging best practices for energy storage policy for decarbonization. Next slide, please. So we got 22 responses from 14 of the leading decarbonization states, and DC also participated. And go ahead to the next slide, please. I'm going to move through this fairly rapidly. So we found out from our survey that the priority applications for energy storage include things like supporting electric reliability and resilience on the distribution grid, cost control through things like electrification, T&D, investment deferral, increasing flexibility of end-use loads and peak demand reduction, enabling higher levels of solar PV interconnection and enhancing the value of that solar PV on the grid, exploring different applications through demonstration projects and programs, location-specific benefits, and then aggregating behind-the-meter storage. And this is a huge new area that's just emerged over the past 8 years or so, which is commonly referred to as virtual power plants, where you have a program that supports and aggregates distributed behind-the-meter energy storage plus other technologies like wireless thermostats and water heaters and so forth, in order to provide grid services, and then those distributed resource owners get compensated. Next slide, please. So those are the priority applications in our survey. There are a number of key policy levers that are being used by states. I'm going to go right on to the next slide because we determined what the top 5 levers are. And number 1, of course, is the procurement mandates, targets, and goals, which is what I'm talking about today. Then we had below that utility ownership of energy storage. Again, I mentioned that already. It's customer incentives, mentioned that already. State sanctioned benefit cost analysis of energy storage and distribution system modeling. Next slide, please. So again, before we go into this, I want to reiterate something that I said before, which is energy storage is a multi-use resource. Okay, it does lots of different things depending on how it's used and how programs and markets are set up. So program design should generally follow from policy goals, and I'll give you a couple of examples. So if the state's policy goal is reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the electricity sector, for example, then the program design might be program-based incentives to reward storage owners for charging from solar or charging from the grid when there's a surplus of solar generation, and then discharging at times when high-emitting fossil fuel generators are on the margin. And this would include both load reduction behind the meter and power export from behind the meter to the grid. And then it also includes things like energy storage included in utility RPS programs, which is Renewable Portfolio Standards, or clean peak standards such as Massachusetts has. So those would be the kinds of program designs you might want to look at, and there are others, if greenhouse gas emissions reduction is your goal. On the other hand, if your goal is building electrification, then that kind of points to different types of program designs. So for example, rebates to incentivize the installation of solar storage and heat pump systems in behind residential meters to replace existing gas and oil heating systems in tandem with other electrification and efficiency measures, and then solar plus storage and electrification added into utility administered state efficiency programs. So this is just sort of 2 examples of how the program design really needs to follow from and support the policy goal. Next slide, please. All right, so this is really the core of what I was asked to talk about today. Energy storage procurement, mandates, targets, and goals. Currently 12 states, and this is shortly to become 13, so we should have changed this, but Illinois, the legislature has adopted an energy storage procurement target, but I think the government has yet to sign it, but I believe that's going to happen. So should be 13 states here have adopted energy storage procurement targets. There's a difference, it's kind of semantic, between a mandate, a target, and a goal. Here, a mandate is a goal with legal liability for non-attainment. So in other words, you either meet the target if it's a mandate. If you don't meet it, then you might, for example, pay an ACP, alternative compliance payments, similar to an RPS program, where if you don't meet the RPS goal, then there's an alternative compliance payment. And that money is usually used to support things like state incentive programs for clean energy. Then a target is a defined goal with measures for follow-through, such as regular reporting, but not with legal liability for non-attainment. And then a goal is a number without any defined accountability at all. So it's an aspirational goal. For example, California has a energy storage procurement mandate. Massachusetts has an energy storage procurement goal. It's an aspirational goal. Next slide, please. Okay, so here's the table of states that currently have energy storage procurement targets of some kind. As I said, I think we're missing the bottom of the slide here. It might have been cut off, but that's okay. Yeah, I think Virginia is at the bottom here. Whoops. Oh, you gotta go back. Oh, there you go. Thank you. So, as I said, Illinois will be added to this. And by the way, we have a bigger version of this with more columns on our website. So if you're interested in learning more about this and you want to see, you want to have links to the program pages and so forth on individual states, go to our website and look up the energy storage procurement table. What I want to point out here is that of these states, most of them, the vast majority, define these procurement targets in terms of megawatts. And I've circled the megawatts here so you can see there's only 2 that define it in megawatt hours, Massachusetts and Oregon, and the rest all define them in megawatts. Why is that important? So I'm going to show you. Next slide, please. So megawatts and megawatt hours are not the same thing. Megawatts or watts or kilowatts measure power, and that's the amount of electricity that can be output from the storage device at any given moment. Megawatt hours or kilowatt hours or watt hours measure energy, which is how much electricity can be output over a defined period, in this case, an hour. So if you think of it in terms of a garden hose, power is the flow rate of the water or the electricity in this case. So however much the flow rate is at an instant, how much of that water is coming through that hose, that's power. Energy, or watt hours or kilowatt hours, is the amount that accumulates over or is discharged over the course of 1 hour. So that's the amount that ends up in that bucket after an hour at that flow rate. Okay, they're very different things. And so I'm going to give you an example if you go to the next slide. And even if you're talking about megawatts, megawatts are all not the same. So here's an example. If you're measuring things in kilowatt hours, so 100 watt light bulb over 10 hours is 1,000 watt hours of light, because 100 watts times 10 is 1,000, right? So that's 1,000 watt hours or 1 kilowatt hour. Okay, likewise, 10 100-watt light bulbs over the course of 1 hour is also 1,000 watt hours, because 10 times 100 watts is 1,000 watts in 1 hour. So in both cases, they're 1,000 watt hours or 1 kilowatt hour, but they're very different. 100-watt bulb burning for 10 hours is very different from 10 100-watt bulbs burning for 1 hour, right? So the one way to think about this is power, and this is reversed. I'm sorry. I need to fix this slide. So the top, the power, well, let me just put it this way. So power, again, the amount that comes out of the hose in any given instant, is important in terms of immediate needs. So if you're trying to get an electric train moving from a stopped position, it takes a lot of energy to get that train moving. That's power. Keeping the train moving, once it's up to speed, requires a duration of energy, but not as much power. Okay, and that's typically more along the lines of an energy battery. So ideally, you would define things in terms of both capacity and duration separately. So you would say our target is 2,000 megawatts of energy storage of at least 4 hours duration, or 6 hours duration, or whatever you want. That would be the kind of the best way to define it. Next slide, please. Okay, so the thing is, most current state policymaking doesn't differentiate. Okay, it just says we want X megawatts, and that's it. However, wholesale energy markets default to 4-hour duration of storage. So if you look at, and when I say wholesale markets, I'm talking about ISO New England, PJM, MISO, California ISO, ERCOT, et cetera. These regional wholesale markets default to a 4-hour duration because the market, the primary application in these markets for energy storage is capacity. That's the most valuable application for the most part. And then you have things like frequency regulation. 4 hours is the duration you need to qualify in these markets for capacity. So if you look at the little table on the right, you'll see ISO New England only requires 2 hours. All of the other markets require 4 hours. California, New York, SPP, MISO, they're all 4-hour qualifying capacity rule. And then PJM is now ELCC based, which is a more complicated and sophisticated way of doing it. But the point is that if you're a battery manufacturer and you're selling batteries to people who are trying to make money with them in these wholesale markets, there is no added value to making a 5-hour battery or even a 4-hour and 20-minute battery. There's no added incentive for duration beyond 4 hours. So what we have right now in the market are a bunch of lithium-ion batteries that are 4-hour batteries, and this is basically why. Likewise, behind-the-meter applications like demand charge management, you're not going to need anything more than 4 hours. You probably don't need more than a half hour. So for resilience purposes, longer is generally better, but again, what's on the market, because where the money is 4-hour batteries. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's look at some best practices for utility procurement. One is, as I already said, define the duration, define the target in terms of both capacity and duration. Secondly, consider carve-outs or incentives for priority technologies. So if you do want anything other than a 4-hour lithium-ion battery, you're going to need to provide a carve-out or incentive for that. So you might say, we want 2 gigawatts of energy storage by 2030, but we want at least 100 megawatts of that to be long-duration storage, by which is usually defined, 10 hours or up. Or we want it to be non-lithium ion. We want different types of technologies to be explored. So you would need a carve-out or incentive for that. Otherwise, it's not going to happen because the market doesn't support it. You also need a carve-out or incentive for priority applications based, again, on the state policy goals. So if your state policy goal is peaker replacement, you want to get rid of close all the dirty peaker plants and replace them with clean solar and storage, then you would need to have an incentive or carve out a requirement in your procurement policy or program that we want to incentivize or require the procurement of storage that will provide those peaking services in the market to displace those existing fossil fuel peakers. Other types of priority applications might be peak demand reduction, transmission and distribution investment deferral, or emissions reduction. And again, how you go about setting this up depends on what's your priority application. It's great if you can support a variety of ownership. So, utility ownership is great, but you don't necessarily want utility monopolies. So for storage, so you also would want customer ownership and third-party ownership, which would be merchant plants that are selling their services through a power purchase agreement or a tolling agreement to the utility or other off-taker. Likewise, you would probably want a variety of locations. So you don't want all the storage to be on the transmission system, or you don't want it all to be on the distribution system, or all behind the meter. It would ideally be that you would have support a variety of locations for storage, a variety of sizes, a variety of ownership, so that you have storage meeting different applications and needs throughout the energy system. And also so that hopefully there is an equity component here. So you notice that we have equity provisions as a bullet here. There are, and I could go on, I could do a whole presentation on this, but there are equity provisions that can be included in these programs. They often aren't, but we think that they should be. And then it's also, as I said earlier, an emerging application is to enable distributed storage or virtual power plants. So in addition to big utility scale installations, you can, for example, create a program by which the utilities contract with customers who install storage behind their meters, aggregate those resources, and dispatch them, and that's a virtual power plant. Okay, next slide, please. So here's just one example. I'm using California because they were the first back in 2013 to adopt an energy storage procurement mandate, the first state to do so. And by the way, they have far surpassed their target. But it's interesting to look at how they did this. So they didn't just simply say, well, the state of California shall have X number of gigawatts by X date. What they said was they broke it down by utility. So Southern California Edison has targets. Pacific Gas and Electric has targets. San Diego Gas and Electric has targets. Then within each utility, they're further broken down by location on the grid. So Southern California Edison has transmission energy storage targets, distribution energy storage targets, and customer-sited energy storage targets. And you can see all that in this table. In addition, they said, well, utilities may own up to 50% of the required capacity, procurement capacity here. So in other words, we're not going to have utility monopolies. The utilities can own half of it, and the other half they're going to have to procure from either customers or third parties. Next slide, please. Okay. I want to pause here before I get into other state policy options and see if we have questions and also if we have time to go on.
Yes. Hi, Todd. This is Valerie from the city of Alexandria. And do you have more slides, or because I can give you a few more minutes if you want. Otherwise, we could start on questions if people have them.
I have more slides, but I was asked to focus on procurement rather than other policy options. So the remaining slides are sort of as time allows. I wanted to just give it an opportunity if people have questions about what I've already presented.
Okay, that sounds perfect. I haven't seen anything show up in the chat so far, but do people have questions? Please raise your hand. I actually can't see everybody.
Yes, I'm not seeing any comments in the chat yet either, Vice Chair. And just to let everyone know, Co-Vice Chair Maddie Bizzardo had to jump off to her conference, and Co-Vice Chair Valerie Amorf with the City of Alexandria has stepped in. So that's why you are hearing someone differently.
Thank you,
And
Leah.
so, yeah, and so far, no comments in the chat, and I don't see any hands raised, but if anyone has any questions, please,
Okay,
Madam
so,
Vice Chair, go ahead.
So it
Actually, I
sounds like
do.
I should continue. How much time do I have to?
Well, Todd, actually, I have a question for you.
Okay.
When you talked about battery storage and how long it should be, so there's no incentive to go more than 4 hours. But how does that work into this really developing and expanding idea of resilience hubs, where they're really relying on that sort of package, right? That battery storage to help get people through these more extreme events that are happening more often. Do you see that there should be a change in that? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so there's an emerging area of long duration energy storage, and we're actually participating. There's a national long duration energy storage consortium that's being led by Sandia National Laboratories and involves a bunch of the other national labs and many, many states and a bunch of the industry participants as well. So yeah, there's emerging long duration storage technologies and applications. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have longer duration storage. We need it. It's just that in current markets, it's not really rewarded, and that's one of the issues. So yes, for resilience hub purposes, longer duration than 4 hours is certainly of great benefit, and I could certainly understand why you'd want that. I'm not saying you shouldn't have it. I'm just saying that right now, there's not in wholesale energy markets, there's not really any reward for a longer duration battery. So if you're looking at something like a resilience hub, you don't want to just have a battery that sits there doing nothing until there's an outage, until there's a grid outage, because that's just a sunk cost that's providing no payback. So generally what people do with energy storage, even if the primary goal is to provide resilience, backup power, you still want to have some kind of plan as to how you're going to use that battery to generate revenues and cost savings during the 99% of the time when the grid is up and running and you're doing business as usual. So what you have to think about is, okay, I'm going to put solar and storage at the community center or the school or whatever the building is that's going to be the resilience hub, right? And we're going to have that set up to support a cooling center or whatever it is during an outage, during a natural disaster. That's the purpose. That's great. Now, during the rest of the time, during business as usual, when the grid is up and running, what are we doing with that battery? So if you got solar, you can net meter it probably. If you got a battery, it's not quite as simple as that. You've got to figure out what services you can provide and monetize. What can you get paid for? So can you provide demand charge management for that host facility and reduce its demand charges on its energy bill? Can you bid into the capacity market? Is there a utility demand response program that you could participate in and get paid by the utility for reducing your load at that facility on demand, or from exporting power to the grid on demand? So is there a virtual power plant in your area that you could enroll in? So there's all kinds of things you can do with it. My only point was that the wholesale markets aren't really set up to reward longer duration storage. Does that make sense?
Yes, it was a question that you answered and has come up at least in my conversations and perhaps in other localities as well. Kind of like, what do we do with them? They're expensive, they sit there. And so you giving those points is actually really quite beneficial. So thank you.
Sure. This is one of the differences between something like solar and storage for resilience and something like a traditional gas or diesel generator, is that the gas or diesel generator usually just sits there idle and does nothing 99% of the time. And you just turn it on when there's an emergency. So it's a sunk cost and it doesn't have a payback. Unless you're a data center or something where, going down for even a second is going to cost you millions of dollars, in which case, that's your payback. But in most cases, the benefit of choosing something like solar and storage, aside from the fact that it's clean and doesn't pollute, is that you also use it year round when there's not an emergency. So you do things like enroll it in the capacity market, or participate in a virtual power plant, or enroll it in your utilities demand response program, so that you can monetize that investment. It doesn't make you any, it doesn't benefit you if it's sitting there not running.
Makes sense. There is a question from Dan Lee. Do you want me to read your question, or would you like to come off mute and share it yourself?
Oh, I can just share myself. Yeah.
Okay,
Just
great.
wondered if the domestic battery manufacturer supply chain is in a position where it can meet these deployment targets. Like, can you buy the product, basically?
Yeah. So this is an issue we're running into with the federal Buy America requirements. Most of the battery market right now, the vast majority is manufactured overseas. Now, obviously, Tesla, for example, manufactures batteries domestically. The problem is that even manufacturing domestically, it often includes components that are imported, and those federal Buy America, Build America requirements get down to the component level. So it's not enough to build your truck in North Carolina. You actually have to build it using components that are also built in the United States. And so if if 2/3 of the components of the truck are imported, then it may not pass the requirement. Same thing for these battery systems. So yeah, that is an issue. A lot of the batteries are manufactured in China and Korea and other places overseas and imported. There are some supply chain issues that started around the time of COVID and have persisted. And it's not as easy as it used to be to say, okay, we're going to build this thing and here's the date where we're going to install it, because you often will run into some kind of supply delay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's good. That's helpful to understand the picture.
Anybody else have any questions? I don't see anything in the chat, but feel free to raise your hand. We have a few minutes left before we're going to kind of wrap up the meeting. I don't see anybody else.
And Chair, if we do have, if we can go on for maybe 2 more minutes, maybe to 11:57, so we can get through the rest of the slides, if that's okay. If because we only have one announcement, and then and that should take like 30 seconds from staff. So if Todd, if you wanted to run through a
Sure.
couple more slides, that will work with me and the chair.
Great. I'm not going to get through all of them in 2 minutes, but I will mention that among the other state policy options are customer incentives. And you don't need to go forward. That was, yeah, no, go back. Back to, no, back. Oh, too far. There you go. So, these are kind of the two main things, I think, that are usually done at the state level: the procurement that we already talked about, and then customer incentives. And so this is an example from California. Again, California is sort of a leader in a lot of these things. The California Self-Generation Incentive Program, or SGIP, is one of the longest running and certainly the best capitalized customer storage incentive program. It's capitalized in the billions of dollars, and it started as a solar PV program, but it was modified in 2011 to focus on emissions reductions, and then again in 2016 to focus most of the budget on energy storage. So it basically is primarily an energy storage program now. And it's sort of typical in its design. There's an upfront rebate for customers to buy and install energy storage. The goal of the program is emissions reduction. And initially, the whole thing was a rebate program, but they found out that emissions were not being reduced, because if you just pay people to install storage, that doesn't give them any kind of guidelines or price signal that would tell them how to use that storage once it's installed. And as I said before, storage is a multi-use tool. You can do lots of things with it. Some of the things you do with it are going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and some of the things you do with it aren't. It depends on how you use it. So what they found out was that in order to have this program really support the goal, which was greenhouse gas emissions reduction, they needed to change the incentive structure. So what they did was they made half of the incentive an upfront rebate, and then the other half of the incentive was essentially a performance-based payment. So over time, if you charged and discharged your battery based on the California ISO emissions rate signal, you would then get that second half of your incentive paid to you. But it was based on performance. And that's a really key concept here, is that energy storage, it's a tool. It's like a hammer. If you give people a hammer, they might build a barn and they might build a birdhouse. And if you want them to build a barn, you have to somehow guide them in how to use that hammer once you've given it to them. So a performance-based incentive really does that. An upfront rebate really doesn't do that. I also want to mention that they have a very good equity carve out within this program. They have a portion of the budget, 15%, which is reserved for residential customers. And then there's a 25% equity carve out. And the equity and resilience budgets really target low-income customers in outage-prone areas. And this has to do with wildfire outages in California. So between 2001 and 2023, this program has incentivized over 46,000 installations, representing over 1,700 megawatt hours of energy storage capacity, and then another 300 megawatts of generation solar capacity. And it has contributed, once they fixed the incentive structure, to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. I want to skip to the, I think, next to last slide, if we can do that, just to wrap this up. Sorry, I didn't get to all of this material, but yes, you're welcome. That one right there. You're welcome to distribute the slides to people, and they can contact me if they have questions. I wanted to just note that we do a lot of work on energy storage. Everything we produce is free. You can download our reports. You can view our archived webinars. We have thousands of archived webinars at this point. The link here is to our energy storage policy for states page, but you can also go to our resource library and just search on keyword energy storage, and you'll find years and years worth of materials. So that's it. Thank you very much. I hope it was helpful. Feel free to distribute the slides to the attendees and contact me if you have follow-up questions.
So thank you, Todd, for the presentation. We really appreciate it. That was very informative. And I know that the slides are going to be shared out. They're on the website, so Dan, you can look for it there. We do have one announcement from Leah on the Environmental Justice Toolkit refresh. So Leah, if you can update us, please.
Yep, I'll keep it very quick. So as I mentioned before, the Air and Climate Public Advisory Committee, for short ACPAC, developed a toolkit back in 2017. It's been quite a few years, 8 years, so we are updating it. Some of you have been a part of a couple of the local government sessions that we had back in February and March. leading that redevelopment or refresh is kind of the placeholder name that we're calling it, is myself, Heidi Bonifant, Robert Christopher contributed, and also Caroline Sherman. So it's going through a first level review by the primary committee, which is ACPAC. And next week, or I think December, it will go out for a further comment from CEPC, BIAC, and some of the community-based organizations. And then the final will be January, end of January is the final toolkit. So look out for that in the next couple of weeks for comments from BIAC. And that's all I have.
Great. Thank you, Leah. I appreciate that. So the meeting schedule for 2026 has been released. Please make a note of them and look for the calendar invites from the COG staff. There is some background noise, so don't let that disturb you. If there are any other items or comments from anybody, any going once, going twice? No. Then the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. For your just for your edification, the meeting schedule is February 19th, April 16th, June 18th, September 17th, and November 19th. And meanwhile, have a happy holiday, and we will see you after the start of the new year.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you, Todd, if you're still on. Bye.